Okay, we have StatCrunch open, we're ready to go. We need to get our data. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to data and we're going to load it. And remember, it's the serial data. And so this is a shared data set. We select shared data sets and we type in serial. And it is the StatCrunch featured option. They're the owners of this that we are going to select. It's typically the first one that pops up. You select the name and here comes the data. We want to compute the 5-number summary. And remember, the way in which we do this is we are computing summary statistics by column because the data is in column. We go to stat, summary stat, column. So we're calculating statistics that are summary statistics. They're describing this distribution by column, and we are selecting sodium. That's all we need to select. The statistic options in this gray box are already selected for us. You can add or take away what you want. We're just going to leave it as is. And we click compute. And then this box pops up, and there's a few things that we should recognize. We are given the name of the column. We are told how many are in the sample size at 77. We're told the average. We're told the variance, that's how spread out the data is. We're told the standard deviation, which you're going to learn about in the next module, and standard error, same thing. The median, which is the middle value. The range, the minimum, the maximum, Q1 and Q3. So the order is not given in the typical 5-number summary order, but it's all here. We need the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. Those numbers make up our 5-number summary. So we are looking at 0, 130, 180, 210, and 320. So we are going to go back into our notes now and record this information.
The interquartile range, remember, is found by taking quartile 3 minus quartile 1. Q3 minus Q1 is equal to 210 minus 130, which is 80. What percentage of cereals have a sodium amount of less than 130 milligrams? So 130 is here. That's the first quartile. So from the first quartile to the minimum, that's 25%. That word less tells us which direction we're talking about. What percentage of cereals of sodium have an amount of less than 210 milligrams? Again, less than 210. That's from the third quartile down. And remember, your data is split where you have Q1, Q2, Q3, and there's 25% in each group. So from the third quartile down is 75%. Now we're going to identify whether there's any potential outliers or not. What we need to do is use the interquartile range with our quartiles to determine what our fences are. And if we have any values above or below our fence, then we know that there's going to be at least an outlier. The fences are created by taking 1.5 times the outliers and adding it to Q3 and subtracting it from Q1. So you do Q3 plus 1.5 the interquartile range, and you do Q1 minus 1.5 the interquartile range. You wouldn't want to add to Q1 because then you're just going towards the median and the upper quartiles. So you need to take it away from the lower and add it to the upper. If our interquartile range is 80, then 1.5 times 80 is going to give us 120. Now we're going to take 120 and add it to our third quartile and subtract it from our first quartile. Q3 was 210, Q1 was 130. So our upper quartile, or our upper outliers, would be Q3 plus 1.5 the IQR, which is 210 plus 120, or 330. And so above 330 would be an upper outlier. Lower outliers are found by taking Q1 minus 1.5, the interquartile range, or 130 minus 120, which is 10. So below 10 or above 330, those are our fences, would be an outlier. Let's look at our data. Our minimum was 0 milligrams. Our maximum was 320. Our maximum is not above that 330 fence, so there are no upper outliers. Our minimum is below our fence of 10, so there is at least one lower outlier. I'm going to create a box plot in StatCrunch so that you can see the outlier displayed.
Okay, let's jump back into the serial data so that we can look at the sodium box plot. We've just identified the outliers or the fences of where we think the outliers are, but StatCrunch actually allows us to see how many outliers there are. And on the picture of the box plot, you get a lot of good information. I'm going to share my screen of StatCrunch. And what we're going to do is we're going to graph a box plot. And remember, we're working on the sodium problem, and I like to view my box plot horizontally. That's all I'm going to change here. Just I'm going to click draw horizontally and then compute. Here is my sodium box plot. Now I see one dot. That signifies that there's an outlier, but that may not be the only outlier. So if you hover over the box plot, StatCrunch pops up this box that tells you the 5-number summary. It tells you the interquartile range. It tells you how many values there are in the data set and how many outliers there are. So we had identified that there was at least some lower bounds below our lower fence. There were some lower outliers. We didn't know how many. This one point shows up, but if you hover over, there's actually 9 outliers. And this is useful information if you might be asked how many outliers are in the data set, say on an exam. Let's head back to our notes to finish up this section.